Hi everyone, I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of May and the full moon that we have coming up in Scorpio on the 12th. And I just want to welcome any new people to the channel. We have very rich and varied content on here, so I hope you enjoy all of the offerings, and particularly for the new people, just to make you aware that scammers abound. Just to say that I am not on Telegram. That's the scammer. I'm not on Instagram. That's the scammer. And I am just on this channel on YouTube. And also I have two pages on Facebook, Pam Gregory, which is my main general page, and also Pam Gregory Astrology for astrology posts. And that's it. And you can often, if you're unsure, you can often check with the subscriber numbers, and you'll find that the scammer channels have much lower subscriber numbers. So I just don't want you to give away any personal details, lose any money. I just want you to be very aware of that, because I will never ask you for any personal details. I will never ask you for any money. So I like all the knowledge on this channel to be for free. That's always my aim. So let's start to talk about May. We had a pretty intense April, and I think really that will keep on rolling, certainly through the end of July, I believe. But let me focus on May. For the first week, we still have Mars opposing Pluto. Now, this was exact on the 25th of April. It was the third opposition in a row. And this is to do with kind of brute force very often, an extreme show of force, or because it's an opposition, it can be kind of extreme polarity. And the first opposition was on the 3rd of November last year. That was just a day, I think, before the US election, or 2 days. And of course, we did see extreme polarity in the voting there. And then we had the second opposition. By that time, Mars had moved into Leo, fixed fire sign, and that was on the 3rd of January. And we had those really tragic fires in the LA area. So that really was a kind of brute force that just destroyed so much. It was really, really tragic. So the last one was on the 26th of April. And we're still, as I record today, because I'm recording it actually on the 26th, on the day that this is exact, we still have yet to see how that plays out. But it's often an enormously strong physical force, or strong expression in the social order in some way. We also have Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius. It will stay at 3 degrees all of May and all of June. And so if you have any planets or angles at sort of between 2 and 4 degrees of the fixed signs, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, or Aquarius, you could be feeling this great sense of intensity and either the need for fundamental change, or fundamental change from the outside coming at you in your life. Major endings, like a snake shedding a skin with these Pluto transits. So major life endings and then new beginnings. But it can take you really down to quite a deep place, Pluto transits. So that is going to stay at 3 degrees all this month and all of next. So it's going to be drilling down if you have any planets or angles, particularly personal planets, between 2 and 4 degrees of the fixed signs. And it also, on the 4th of May, becomes retrograde for the next few months until October. And whenever a planet moves retrograde, it is, if you think of the phrase going back over. So what is it? What is Pluto going back over? Well, in the sign of Aquarius, it could well be going back over some friendships, which may have been highlighted round about the full moon in Libra that we had a little while ago. It could be groups or networks, or your social media groups and networks. You may want to revise those, review those in some way. You may also be thinking about how you use technology, how you use AI. Aquarius very linked to AI as well. And can you bring in any kind of new ways of using that, new methods, depending on how you feel about that? But groups, friendships, networks, communities, and technology, all those sorts of subjects will be coming up for your reevaluation over the next few months. So it's, it's quite a slow, deep process. So just allow yourself to be guided through it. We also have we have Uranus conjunct Algol exactly to the degree. Algol is a fixed star linked to losing your head. Now that can be a literal losing your head, or it can be a kind of going crazy, losing your head. But it's interesting that Uranus was conjunct Algol last July, I believe July 13th, when the US president had an assassination attempt on him. And so Uranus is conjunct Algol. It's particularly linked to leaders losing their heads, leaders losing their position very often, falling from power. And we have that now. It's exact on the 28th of April and for the first 12 days of May. That is going to be exact. So we'll see what happens with leaders across the world. Of course, we've just had the passing of Pope Francis as well. A very different energy I just want to mention is just specific to the 2nd of May. We have Venus conjunct Neptune at 0 of Aries on the world axis. Now, because it's on the world axis and it's the very first degree of the zodiac, and Venus coming together with Neptune is wonderful for aesthetic creative projects, things like artwork or fashion design, aesthetics, that kind of thing, interior design in a home. But it can also be the beginning of a new romantic relationship as well. Very first degree of the zodiac. So terrific time to initiate a new creative project, or indeed a romance if one comes your way. But it's just very tightly on the 2nd of May, give or take a couple of days. On the 5th of May, we have Ceres, the largest asteroid, conjunct the North Node, and on the 8th, it's square to the galactic center. So this is really highlighting Ceres. Now, Ceres as an asteroid is known as the goddess of grains and harvests and corn and wheat. And in the myth, she was the daughter of Persephone, who was kidnapped by Pluto and taken down to Hades, taken down to hell. And she was so distraught that she bargained with Jupiter to bring her daughter back by initiating winter. And she said it was only when Jupiter helped to recover her daughter, Persephone, from the underworld that she would bring back spring and summer. So she is said to link to the seasons, but she's very closely allied to grains and harvests and food production in general. And of course, Uranus is also in Taurus, linked to agriculture, food supplies, food production, food distribution, that kind of thing. So this is really, again, continuing to put food production and agriculture into the picture in some way. Now, we have had, and I think will continue to have, a lot of extreme weather going forwards for natural and unnatural reasons. But it's part of Gaia's evolution that she is kind of purging and going through labor pains, and part of that is some extreme weather, I think, of all kinds. It could be floods and droughts. We'll get into more specifics as we look at the chart, but it could be floods and droughts and storms and strong winds, etc. So that could challenge quite a lot of food production. So as always, I just suggest that you plan for that. You have a little sprouter on your windowsill. You've got some dried food or canned food just to sort of see you through. And it's something I was used to help my parents with as a child living in northern England, when we cut off with snow for 2 months every year. It was just a joyful planning really for what was to come, and then you were reassured that it was going to be okay to get you through till springtime. So let us look now at the full moon in Scorpio, which happens on the 12th of May. So I've always said this for England. This is where I live. And so you have to adjust that for your own time zone. So ignore the clock face, ignore the houses. We're just looking at where the planets fall and their aspects to each other. So as always, when we have a full moon, we have the sun and moon opposite each other. So with Scorpio, this is a sign that brings up a lot of emotional intensity. Tremendous focus with Scorpio. It's one of the best signs in the zodiac for giving you focus on those creative projects that you're going to be initiating. Terrific focus. It brings up passion as well. And it is the sign most closely linked to secrets. So this full moon is going to be, again, shining a light on long-held, long repressed secrets. These can be secrets that are financial, because Taurus, Scorpio rules the financial axis, because Scorpio is big money, hidden money, invested money, criminal money, sometimes underhand money, underground money. And Taurus is linked to wealth, currencies, banking, all that sort of thing. So it could well be in the financial area that we see some truth coming to light, but also Scorpio is the most sexual sign. We could see sexual secrets or something connected to something very underground or underhand coming forth in the bright light of this full moon. And Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, planet of transformation, and I'm gonna come back to that. But it's interesting here that the moon is also trying to Ceres, who I've just been talking about, and Saturn. We also have the dwarf planet here of Teheron Hayawako, who is the creator farmer god who always wants to make sure there are enough seeds for the next harvest. So there's a lot here about foods, harvest, food production. And as I mentioned, these are sextile to Uranus in Taurus, linked to food production. So my sense of this is, because Uranus is also about innovation, new methods, my sense of this is we are going to be developing lots of innovation, lots of new ideas around how to grow our food. And I was just looking at a website the other day, and I'll try and find it actually and put the link below, because in many areas in cities now, they're using rooftops for growing food, or houses, incredible houses that are very environmentally harmonious, but also you can plant vegetables on your roof, and the roof has sort of irrigation channels in it, so it naturally waters the vegetables, and you gradually eat your roof. But also the vegetables keep your roof very insulated. So, these amazing kind of innovations coming in. And I think ways of conserving water with growing food. They're big areas of cities that have taken over old factories. They're using what's called vertical farming, where they're using kind of tower structures so they can grow a lot of acreage of vegetables in actually quite a small floor area. So all of these kinds of things, you can get them for your home as well. You can find them very easily online. So this kind of different thinking, I think, will start to come in more and more strongly as the climate goes through its extremes. Now, Taurus is normally the sign where we want to keep things steady. We want to keep things as they are. We don't want any sudden shocks or surprises coming in from the outside. However, it is conjunct Uranus. It's conjunct Uranus, who never wants to keep things the same. It wants to break up the old stale routines. It wants to dive into quantum leap into new areas, new technologies, all kinds of innovations. So this is quite a tension. And so Taurus is not going to have its steady, peaceful, quiet time, I think, at this full moon in Scorpio, with all this intensity from the moon side. But also this could suggest, again, seismic activity. because Uranus is the planet par excellence of earthquakes. I mean, just recently, in the last week or so, we've had some quite large earthquakes. We had, I think, a 5.7 in the Philippines, a 5.7 in Papua New Guinea, I think, and also 6.2 in Turkey. I think I'm correct in saying those. So they're all quite close together. And so they weren't extraordinarily large, but they were large earthquakes. And, people are talking about there's a lot more seismic potential coming in. And this full moon in Scorpio highlights it. And whenever we get new moons, but even more so full moons, because of the extra pull on the tides and the tectonic plates, it can add to the probability of earthquakes. The other thing Uranus brings in here is rebellion, revolution. It's very interesting that Uranus is super tightly square the moon in the US chart. The moon in the US chart is at 27 of Aquarius. The moon is the people. And so this is at 26, well, actually 1 minute from 27 of Taurus, so squaring 27 of Aquarius. And so we could see a lot of revolution and rebellion, particularly in America. And obviously this full moon is also forming a T-square to that American moon, with that chart set for the 4th of July, 1776, 10 past 5 in the afternoon, Philadelphia. So that kind of rebellion, freedom, human rights, civil rights, people taking to the streets, not taking it anymore, that kind of thing. And also we have continuing Eris here, which is just about in a quincunx, actually, to the moon. And Eris is that feisty dwarf planet that takes to the streets and fights for justice, freedom, equality, every voice to be heard. Very tightly conjunct Chiron here as well. So Chiron is where we're wounded. So a lot of this potential rebellion and revolution and demands for truth and equality is coming out of where we feel vulnerable, where we feel wounded, and demanding that that's not going to happen again. We need to be heard. And also what's feeding into this picture is Mars in Leo, which is very much the sign of sovereignty, individual sovereignty, is in a sesquiquadrate to Saturn, where it's felt squashed. So some, very clear themes about this. But the Sun conjunct Uranus and the Moon opposing Uranus are about wanting to be more individual, express our individual essence, be more creative, be maverick, be independent, break the rules, etc. So it's quite a feisty, vigorous full moon in Scorpio, for sure. What is also very lovely, I think, is that Chariklo, who we haven't talked about for some time, Chariklo was the wife of Chiron in myth. She helped to heal Chiron because he couldn't heal himself. Chariklo is known as the soul midwife. She is present at transitions of life to death, but also in transitions of consciousness, which is what we are all going through right now. She is very related to the Buddhist ground of being, that permanent state of stillness that is always there for us. Chariklo holds eternal peace and bliss in her state of being. She can heal people simply by that state of bliss, just by her presence. And you'll have met people in your life who can do this. They have a kind of radiant presence. So what's interesting is that a lot of what could be very intense, feisty energy here and intense emotional energy. The moon in Scorpio, all that I've just described, could be transmuted by Chariklo being in this super tight T-square. I mean, it's just 5 minutes from exactitude, 6 minutes from exactitude to this full moon. So it is encouraging us to transmute those kind of more base animal instincts. And that is also true, of course, of Mars just pulling away from this opposition to Pluto. That's very primal, really instinctive and primal and overreactive and triggered. And Chariklo reminds us that we can always just take a breath, be mindful, and drop into that eternal ground of being that is always, always, always there for us. And so, this really is about transmutation, I think, in a very major way. And what adds to that is, I will have referred to the Sabian symbols before, and the Sabian symbols were downloaded by a very gifted medium called Elsie Wheeler, I think way back in something like the 1930s. And she downloaded a Sabian symbol for every single degree. And what you have to do is round up to the next degree before you read the Sabian symbol. So we round up to 23 degrees of Scorpio, and the Sabian symbol for that is a rabbit undergoes metamorphosis into a nature spirit. A rabbit undergoes metamorphosis into a nature spirit, which is very beautiful. So again, we're talking about a shift from one state of being to another, from the animal to a spirit being, just a nature being, a spirit being. And I think this is a reminder of the great transformation, the great metamorphosis that we are going through right now as humanity. So it's spot on, I think, that Sabian symbol, because you'll remember probably that I did a video called Metamorphosis for Humanity. I'll put the link for that below. And I haven't put them in here, but Pluto is the planet of transformation, the ruler of Scorpio. Dwarf planet Haumea is at 2 degrees of Scorpio, very related to regeneration, not just transformation, but regenerating herself from an old crone to a young maiden and birthing babies from all over her body. We also have planet Sedna, dwarf planet Sedna. Again, I haven't put her in here, but she's at 1 degree of Gemini, and Pluto is therefore trine to Sedna and square to Haumea. So I don't want to repeat everything I said there, but the whole focus of that was about, we aren't just going through a linear evolution, we are going through a total change of state, not only in our biology, and of course, I've had many conversations with very different people over recent months about our shift and our change in biology, but also our change in spiritual state, let's call it. And there's so many clues in that too, in this to suggest that too. Other things just to pick up on here in this new moon chart is that Jupiter is in a quincunx 150 degree aspect to Scorpio. So whatever information, news information is coming out, social media is coming out, Gemini, is going to be kind of magnified at this full moon. That could be about these secrets coming to light, that could be financial or sexual. A previous time when we had an important full moon in Scorpio was when do you remember the Pandora Papers coming out? There's a huge financial scandal about huge money, criminal money that had been hidden away. Well, it could be that kind of thing, but it's very related, I think, to the underworld, the underhand. So Jupiter is also related, it's also square here to Ceres and Saturn. So again, blowing up any issues around food production, agriculture. It is coming to its third final square to Saturn. Now, I did a separate video on the square between Jupiter and Saturn. I'll put the link for that below so I don't have to repeat all that. But in short, Jupiter and Saturn come together in conjunction reliably every 20 years. And they lasted this it was the December solstice, the Capricorn solstice at the end of 2020. And that was a very interesting time in our history, of course, wasn't it? If you think where we were in the pandemic. And when we have the first square, because two planets come together in a conjunction, then inevitably one always has a faster orbital speed than the other. And so the faster one will move to a 90-degree aspect, and that becomes the testing point of whatever was trying to be birthed at that seeding point in December 2020. So, and it was also at 0 of Aquarius, which is a whole new 200-year cycle of this conjunction happening in air signs, which is about technology, innovation, community, etc. But, the video will explain more. So they are going to become exactly square on the 15th of June, and that will be the third and final square in this cycle. Now, Jupiter is about expansion, Saturn is about contraction. So again, see where Jupiter is falling in your chart. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can download a free birth chart from my website. Go to this link below. You can get a 2-part video series that will take you to my store, and you can then be taken from 0 to be able to identify where these points in your chart and what they mean for you. So see where Jupiter is falling in your chart, but it is blowing up something, blowing up facts and information, very possibly via social media in a bigger way. And what are those issues about? Well, they could well be Pisces. They could be around issues of water, pollution, toxicity, drugs of all kinds, the media, shipping, fishing, fish, all of those kinds of things, the illusion, the veil, the collective hypnosis. Now, that won't become exact, as I say, and really kind of turn the key in the lock until mid-June. But this is an operational square. We are now moving towards that. So that's going to be very interesting to see what starts to emerge, because it's a very, very important square. And by then, also very interestingly, Jupiter will just have moved into Cancer, 0 of Cancer on the world axis. Saturn will have moved into Aries on the world axis. It actually moves in on the 25th of May. So they will be squaring each other from 0 degrees of the cardinals. So whatever they are offering to us as information, it will be big on the public stage in some way, big on the public stage. So we'll wait and see what unfolds with that. But just before Saturn moves into Aries, it will be at this 29 degrees, it's almost there now, actually, just 2 minutes off, 29 degrees of Pisces, the very last degree of the zodiac, from the 13th to the 25th of May. And this is the crisis degree, the anoretic degree. So again, it could throw up all those types of issues I've just talked about with water, the seas, the oceans, toxicity, pollution. It could be linked to oil, because Pisces is also linked to oil. Drugs, the media, the illusion, deception, lies, fishing, shipping, all those kinds of things. As I've mentioned before, once Saturn moves, it's already tightly conjunct, only 3 degrees away, in fact, 2.5 degrees away from Neptune. But when it moves in there, in that exact conjunction to the degree, which won't be till July, it's likely we could see more drought in the world, limited water, because if I go back to the last time they were conjunct in 1989, and that was in Capricorn, we did have drought a lot across quite a lot of geographies, the US, the UK. There were several geographies that were very low on rainfall. So You know, if you can get a rain butt, if you have a garden, you can get a rain butt or something like that. That would be really helpful. And just in terms of the geography here, the astrocartography, where is this going to fall, this full moon? And what that means is if the planets were each to leave a shadow across the globe, as it were, when they become on an angle, and when they become on an angle of a chart, it increases the potency of their expression. Where would those geographies be? And so that doesn't mean that all of these geographies will come into prominence, but it is more likely that some of them will. That's how it works. So this full moon, which also includes Uranus here, is falling over New York, Washington, Washington close to New York on the East Coast, Cuba, Colombia and Peru, so West Coast South America, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, Indonesia, Thailand. Again, we've had quite a lot of seismic disturbance in Indonesia and Thailand recently. China, Mongolia, and we have Pluto conjunct the IC, the base of the chart, across West Africa and France. Pluto conjunct the IC can be pretty eruptive as well. So we will wait and see what unfolds here. But this is certainly strong energy, and we are going into a whole series of endings and new beginnings. You know, Neptune has just moved out of Pisces into Aries on the 30th of March. Saturn is going to make that move on the 25th of May. You then have Jupiter in June entering Cancer and really highlighting the world axis. I mean, there's so many planets on the world axis in June, it's quite remarkable. Uranus entering Gemini on the 7th of July. I think that could be an incredibly powerful period around then, again, for more revolution, rebellion, or seismic activity. So, you know, we've got some very, very powerful energy that we're moving through because there is such a concentration of planet shifting signs in 2025 and early 2026. So it's very unusual to have that many. So I hope that's helped you. I am going to be putting out quite a few more videos in the coming month, but really do try and find a spiritual practice, a default practice by which you can transmute a lot of these primal energies, reactive trigger energies. Chariklo is going to help us beautifully, but the way we can alchemize, we transmute these energies, it's an alchemical shift that is actually an inner shift that then takes an outer form. So we can do that by, if we're feeling very triggered, just by closing our eyes, dropping into our breath, slowing the breath in all the ways I've talked about. I'll put the video below about the yogic baby breath. That's such a simple one, 10-minute video. Everybody in the world can do that. So simple. Or just watch your breath. Close your eyes, listen to your heartbeat. Just these simple things will really help us shift from the trigger overreaction, from a lot of these very kind of impulsive energies that we're seeing, and deeply felt energies with Scorpio as well, as truths come to light, to be able to rise like an eagle, onto his perch and keep the observer position and just transmute those energies into something much more loving, something much more linked to unity consciousness. And just remember, every single night at 7 p.m. UK time, and you can adjust that for your own time zone, we have that free 15-minute meditation, completely free, no Zoom links, no recordings, no tech, no nothing. I'll put the link for that video below that explains it. And if you can't think of anything better, keep a rolling mantra of we're welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. We're welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. And joining those meditations every night will really help you to shift from impulsivity and reactivity to something much more divinely neutral. Divinely neutral. So I hope that's helped you. I'll be back very soon having another wonderful conversation with Dr. David Clements in a few days' time. So God bless and catch you very soon again. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.